Team, yo, made by James freebie time. Let's go. So today we're going to be talking about process. Look, just very quickly, I'm looking at a screen here. The camera's up here. I've got a vertical monitor here, but I don't like looking at the presentation on a vertical monitor, so I'm going to look at it on my computer over here. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm just looking at the screen, but you'll still get a good idea about it. Hey, it's free, fuck it, doesn't matter. Timmy would usually, if I was doing a free course or something like that, which I'm going to be doing every quarter, a free mini course, Timmy will be filming those for me. But as this is a tool, and I want to try and do as many of these three things as possible without too much cost onto James, or maybe bad James, I am going to be doing this one via Loom. And if I can get in a good rhythm with it, I'm going to be able to do more and more and more of these for free, which is what I want to do, accessible education. Right, let's go. Process. Today we're going to be talking about a complete fucking overview of my process, and it's my client process from high to buy. So when they come in the door and they go, "Hey James, I'd love to work with you," from all the way to "See you later, bye bye, don't come back, love you." Are you joking? To actually way above and beyond that as well, even what happens after we finish the work and the process that happens after that. So yeah, let's crack on. Process equals profit. Now, many of you, if you've taken any of my courses, seen me speak on stage, been a part of any online summits or anything like that, you'll notice that I say this a lot. Process is the key to building a successful, valuable, and profitable creative business. For a long time, I made shit up, and the problem with that is it's fun for a while until you realise that you're not making any fucking money doing any creative work because you're either spending too long, or your client has control of the process, or if you're like me, you did unlimited revisions, and sometimes that can kick you in the butt. So process is the key. What we need to be doing is we need to constantly be tweaking, evaluating, re-evaluating, rethinking all the bits and pieces about our process. And even still to this day, I'm still chopping, changing, tweaking, making small little dial tweaks to my process to make it more profitable for me, make it more enjoyable for my client, and ultimately a better experience. So this is the journey we're going to be chatting about today. Like I mentioned, this journey from high to buy, and everything that happens in between that. So for me, don't worry, I'm going to be giving you all these slides as well underneath the video, so don't you worry about that. You can have all access to all of these. I give free hugs, remember. But yeah, for me, there are 4 sections. Now, some of these you've probably heard of, and some of these you won't have heard of because I made them up. So I haven't made up the words, do you know what I mean? But I have made up what they do and where they are placed. But we're going to talk about onboarding, then we go into all aboard, then we go into offboarding, and then we go into Apres Board. So onboarding is very much the stuff that happens from when the client says, "Can I work with you?" How you take them onto the process, the contracts, the deposits, the conversations you have before any creative work starts, and all that kind of jazz. Then the all aboard section is all about sorry, my fucking hair is doing my head in. Let me just sort that out, otherwise it's gonna fucking do my shit in all the way through this. All aboard is all about what happens after their deposits paid, after their contracts paid, things like discovery calls, clarity discussions, the creative process. That's what happens. So when they're all aboard, that's the section we go through there. Offboarding is what happens at the end of that process. So how do we package up our files, getting the final deposits, like copyright transfer documents, all these things if you want to do that. And then Apres Board is all about what happens once the client's left. Do you know what I mean? what cadence do we have for reaching back out to them to figure out new work, or upselling new work, or trying to get referrals, or blah, 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 blah. You know, all of that lovely jazz, testimonials, blah, 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 blah. So these are the sections that I'm going to kind of go through with you today. And each of these sections has a process within them, as you will see. So, here we go. Onboarding. So, what I've done is I've broken them down into sections like this, and then what I'm going to do is within each section, so in this particular one I'm going to talk more about the web form, I'm going to talk more about the proposals, I'm going to talk more about the contracts, I'll do those in detail, but this is like what the overview for the onboarding looks like when it comes to a client working with Made by James and now Lincoln. So, you know, what it's about is a client, let me take you through it. So client either reaches out to me on Instagram, or they'll meet me in the street. Oh, that doesn't happen very often, but you know what I mean. Maybe a referral, maybe they'll send me an email, maybe they'll come through my website, whatever it is. A client will say, hey James, I'd love to work with you. What I always do, it doesn't matter who they are, whether I've worked with them before or whatever, I always send them to a web form. Now, the web form, this particular part of my process, what I used to do years and years ago was just go, oh, hey, yeah, I'd love to work with you. Here's my prices. Do you know what I mean? And it worked. Do you know what I mean? There was nothing wrong with it, but I've found a better way now. And the better way is asking for budgets and asking for timelines. And I'm going to go into that in more detail. But what happens is they come in, they say, James, I want to work with you. I go, hey, no problem. I'd love to work with you too. Head to the form on my website, fill that out quick, and if everything aligns, what we can do is we can jump on a 20-minute call. If they go to that form and they fill it out and their budgets don't align, their timelines don't align, I just say, look, sorry, I can't work with you. Like on my actual form at the moment, I have like a 3 to 10k, 10k to 30k, and 30k plus. Do you know what I mean? So some people will get to that form and not even fill it out. What this form does, is it allows me to only spend time with people who can afford my creative powers. That's the way I like to look at it. So I'm not wasting time having calls or spending loads of time creating proposals for people who don't quite have the budget to work with me. And it's been a great add to my process. So I would, please, maybe think about putting a web form on as a part of your process. So if everything goes well on that web form, they've got the budget, they've got all the bits and pieces I need, timeline's good, I then jump on a 20-minute free call with them. And on that call, what we are doing is we are just having a little chat about the project. I'm trying to figure out what's not quite right for them, what are the things they need, what are the solutions that we could possibly come up with to fix the problems that they've got. On this call, basically what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to just align with them, figure out whether they're a good fit for me, figure out whether I'm a good fit for them, and also try and dive deeper into what their needs are. So a lot of the time people will come to me like, I need a new logo, or I need a new visual identity, and often those really aren't, they're things that clients need, but they're not really the problems that they've got. So I'm trying to figure out, like, why do they need these things? When anybody who's taken the future course, the brand identity course, I go very deep into this. So if you want to find out more information about this, please go and jump on that. But on that 20-minute free call, what I'm also trying to do is I'm trying to get them to give me a more accurate depiction of their budget. So they've given me a rough guide in the web form, but then I'm like, okay, so how much do we want to spend? Do you know what I mean? To get to this place, this happy place, this stuff where you've got all the stuff you need to be able to go and change the world and all the rest of it. So that's when I'm trying to like get them to commit. So like, yeah, well, we're happy to spend up to like 10k, or we're happy to spend up to 15k, or whatever it is. Then I go, okay, yeah, cool, that works for me. And I'm trying to get them to commit on the call as much as possible. But for me, it's also really important to document the process and give them a breakdown of what they're going to get for a certain amount of money. And that's where the proposal comes in. And on that proposal, like I said, it's a very quick overview, some capabilities, some services that we offer, a bit of the process, and then it breaks down in more detail the timeline, the amount, and the deliverables. Once that's sent, I then have this process where, like, as I said, like, usually what they have done is they have okayed on the call that they're keen and they just want to see a proposal, and I always send a proposal anyway to document stuff, like I said. But once that's all good, maybe a day or the same day or a couple of days later, I'll get the deposit paid, and I'll get the contract sent, and then I'll get the rest of the process scheduled, like, so all on the all aboard side of it. Deposit wise, I always ask for 75% up front, 25% on completion, depending on the size of the project. If we're doing a big kind of brand overhaul, a big kind of, you know, website, animation, visual identity, some strategy, what I'll probably do is I'll probably take 50% up front, and then I'll do 2-stage payments of 25 and 25. So 25 halfway through again, and then 25% at the end on completion. Contracts are sent, you know, SOWs and bits and pieces like that. And then, like I said, the process is scheduled from there on in, like onboarding calls and all the rest of it. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go into a few more things. So within the onboarding thing, the web form, this is such an important thing for me, and I wanted to kind of give you a little bit more detail about it. So like I mentioned, like when you go to my website, you can go to the agency page and you can then see like how this flows, and feel free to go and check it out. Just go and put test on it so I don't get back to you and ask you if you want to work with me. But you'll see like what the form has. It has like certain fields, like very simple things, like firstly like name, address, you know, and then there'll be another slide, and then it will be like, when I say address I mean email address, and then second slide will be like, talk to me a little bit about your project, so what are some, maybe some deliverables and all the rest of it. And then the next slide is where it gets very interesting, and the two things that we want to do on a web form to clarify our leads, and to whittle down the people that can't quite afford us or our work, is we need to ask them what their budget is and what their timelines are. Now, a lot of you might be thinking, well, a client doesn't know what they want to spend and they keep telling me they don't know what their blah, 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 blah. Look, everybody has a budget. Everybody has an idea of what they want to spend and what they don't want to spend. Look, it's a red flag for me if a client doesn't know what they want to invest in this part of their process. So be very, very wary of that. Every client, you know, I've actually had clients come to me, you know, they filled out the form, they've told me they've got a budget, and then I ask them on the call, what is their budget? And they go, I just don't really know what this kind of stuff costs. And I go, okay, 40 grand. And then they go, well, that's way over budget. And I go, okay, so you have got a budget. What's your budget? And then they go, well, probably close to 10, 15. I go, okay, there we go. Do you know what I mean? So, like, everybody's got a budget. And that's a great little tactic. If you do it with in a jovial nature, and they go, well, I don't really know what stuff costs, just say 100 grand, 40 grand. Do you know what I mean? And they'll suddenly start to rethink where they're happy to spend. But these are two really, really essential questions. They, like I said, they will stop you from wasting time on people that can't afford you. Like, there might be somebody with a great budget, but they need it next week. Do you know what I mean? Like, you need to know their timelines as well. These are just as important. And I've had people who have got great budgets, but they need it like in 3 or 4 days, and I'm like, that's just not possible. Absolutely zero chance. So make sure that you are leading a client and you're clarifying your leads through a form and asking these two questions, because I guarantee this will change the game. Proposals. Now, underneath, I've actually now got a tools page on my website where you can access these, because I'm trying to help as much as possible. I'm trying to create as many things as I can to help my designer mates. So I've started to build all these things, so these are now accessible on my website. But the proposal, there's always two. There's a short form one and there's a long form one, and you can use whichever one you want. I've made both accessible within my website. A proposal is basically just like an outline of the structure, the timeline of what you were going to do within your project. It's not necessarily, a proposal isn't a contract, remember. A proposal is just almost like an outline of some of the work that you're going to do. It outlines your process. It might have some of your capabilities and services in it. It might have some of your working terms and conditions in there. It will also have prices and bits and pieces like that. But there are two versions, like I said. You can have a short form or a long form. The short form will generally just kind of go into the nitty gritty. Do you know what I mean? Like timelines, deliverables, prices and terms. And the long form will be a little bit more, shall we say, flamboyant, you know, slightly better designed. It'll have more of a cover note feel. Talk about your general process, kind of outline the project process in a bit more detail. You could share some of your work in there to fluff it out, make it look cool. Because ultimately, what a proposal does is you've got to remember it's a very it's almost like a shop window a little bit. It might be the first time obviously apart from the client researching you, but it's the first part of the experience of them getting to see how much you care about this. And proposals, I think. Some say they're kind of useless, and some say you shouldn't be wasting time putting proposals, and you shouldn't be wasting time putting proposals together for people who can't afford you. But you should put proposals together for clients who are willing to invest good money in you, because it's a part of your job. All right. So, let's not overthink it. But this is like I said, a well-designed proposal starts to build trust in your brand. And again, the long form will also have timelines, deliverables, prices and terms. Like I said, I have these available on my website if you want them. Do you know what I mean? So, but they're really, really important parts of the process to build the trust, build the reputation, and get that client to start, if they're willing to spend 10 or even 5, 10, 20k on you, a well-designed proposal that outlines all the bits and pieces that you can do for them is a no-brainer. Especially because once you've done it once, or even if you've got the template, it's just a rinse and repeat thing. You just change prices, change some of the timelines, the rest of it stays the same. Easy peasy. And then contracts. So, contracts, I went through a long time without having contracts. It never used to bite me in the butt too bad. But as my prices started to grow, and as I started to want to look like a more professional outfit, should we say, I started to share contracts. And obviously, as a creative, you'll also encounter a lot of contracts like NDAs or copyright transfers, T's and C's and subcontractor stuff and blah 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 blah. So within the SOW, which is a statement of work, it's basically exactly that. It's a contract, a legal binding contract that outlines the work that you're going to do, the timelines, the deliverables, the revisions, the feedback process, the copyright side of it, and your right to share within your portfolio, and when the client owns it. I know communication policy, cancellation clauses, project suspension, copyright transfer. Yeah, like I've always said, a good contract or a good SOW should protect you and the client in any situation. So within the SOW, there's also bits and pieces like if I fall ill, what the client is entitled to, and there's other bits and pieces like if the client has excessive hand holding or keeps telling me what to do, I can suspend the project and all the rest of it. And again, these, I've made these available on the website, so if you want to check them out, they are there. But these are super, super handy. These contracts are the things that allow you, the creative, to be able to sleep at night. Because now, whenever I get an email from a client, which is very, very rare, which is like, blah, 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? Red flag, red flag, red flag. I'm like, you signed the contract, mate. Do you know what I mean? What can you do? It puts the designer in control. And that is something that's really, really important, because when we're in control of the process, it makes it a lot easier for us to be able to create with freedom, without stress. Like I said, sleep better, rest better, because we're not worried about any client kicking off or doing something or not getting back to us, because we're always in control. Other things, like I said, I've had to go through these useful to have. So I've had to sign NDAs, subcontractor agreements. You might want to bring a freelancer on board to help you with a certain project. Copyright transfer. So when you've finished the project or finished the logo or whatever it is you're doing for the client, Sometimes they ask that, can you share the copyright transfer? Can you transfer over the copyright to me? So there's a contract for that. And then obviously T's and C's. T's and C's are great. They're just kind of working terms and conditions, general terms. These are great to have on the bottom of your website. These are great to kind of have, maybe linked into contracts. But they're also just great to have, in and around your vicinity. Do you know what I mean? They generally are super useful. And again, I've created a little tool here for you if you need any of these. And now we're on to the all aboard. 20 minutes in and I'm only here. Okay, I've got to speed up. So, client to-dos. So there are certain things I always ask the client to do before we kind of go into the process. And, I've always been keen on, as I said, my process has constantly evolved. I used to kind of ask them to do loads of different bits and pieces, and I found that there's certain things that clients are willing to do, and as my process has evolved into more of kind of a calculated brand identity side of it, on the strategy call I'm doing a lot of it, but there are certain things I want them to do, like they can fill out a questionnaire, they can create a mood board and bits and pieces like that. But on the discovery call, on my strategy sessions or calculated creativity sessions, this is where I'm doing a lot of my heavy lifting. I always like to think, a good discovery call or a good strategy session should feel like therapy. Do you know what I mean? And then again, anybody who's taken my brand identity course, all of this is kind of broken down within that, and I go into great detail. But once I've got all my bits sorted with the client, they've given me their mood board, they might have filled out a little questionnaire. And the reason I sometimes ask them to fill out a questionnaire is just to get them motivated and just to get their brains on the project, and it's nothing big. I sometimes do that for clients that I think might need a little bit of motivating, like just fill this out, it takes 20 minutes, just enjoy it, just write some things about your business. And what I do is I have that just as a reference for when I'm on the call, but for other clients I don't bother, and I just do it all on the discovery call, and then after that discovery call I then break that discovery call down into what I call a clarity discussion. That clarity discussion is basically just an email breaking down like some stories, some personalities, some verbal identity ideas, some personalities, some pillars, some mission, vision ideas, like maybe some examples of voice. Basically what I'm doing on this clarity discussion is I'm breaking down all the information on this discovery call and whittling it down into something a little bit more cohesive that I can then send the clients, and I can, like I said, just send it to them in an email. And they go, yeah, this feels like me. Yeah, it's almost like a brief, should we call it. And then after they've okayed the clarity discussion, then I go into some super rapid sketchios. I used to call it rapid prototyping, but now everybody else calls it rapid prototyping. So I've decided to call it super rapid sketchios because that's more made by James, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? And I love the fact that people are kind of diving into my process and using it. It does excite me and energize me. So, but I like to be different. Super rapid sketchios. Let's go. And this is actually a slightly newer part of my process. What I do now is after the clarity discussions, I'll go into Sketchbook and we'll create like a load of different ideas, maybe 2 or 3 pages, like nothing kind of crazy detailed, but like they're kind of good enough for the client to conceptualize the idea. And what I do is, once I've got like a load of sketches down, what I'll do is I'll take pictures of the sheets and I will put them into a keynote like this, and I'll highlight my favorite ones, and then I'll jump on a Loom like I'm doing here, and I'll talk my client through the ideas, through the direction, how it relates to the discovery call and the clarity discussion, and what I'm trying to get across here. And like I said, these are just super rapid sketches. They've probably taken 3 to 4 hours. I haven't invested a load of time in here, but what I'm doing on this is I'm asking the client, what direction do you want to lean into? I'm happy with all of these directions. I've highlighted the ones that I really want to go kind of lean into, and I asked them, like, if you had to choose like one of these directions, like which one would it be? And they'll often kind of go, well, I like this one, but it might be quite cool to add a little bit of this. I really like the angle of this, but I really like 90% of this, but I really like this part of this one, this part of this one. Then what I do is I refine, and I go into like maybe vectoring that up, and then maybe adding some color, like light stages. And this is what we talk about when we talk about the feedback process, which kind of comes up, is like the feedback process needs to be laid out at the very, very beginning. You know, like what is a revision? What is the feedback? And for me, like it should be like, you send something signed off, you send something signed off, you send something signed off. Do you know what I mean? So you're always moving forward rather than like doing this. But I'm going to go into that in more detail. So once I've refined the winners and I get the client to okay those, that's when we kind of go through the kind of like more detailed kind of like mocking up, building out animations, you know, design systems, all of these things. But we're always moving forward in the process. And then once the client's happy, we wrap it all up into a lovely, lovely bit of pieces of stuff. Do you know what I mean? So let's kind of go back to the client to-dos. So before we kick off, always schedule a Zoom. Like I mean, a lot of the times the clients that I chat to are in a different country, so it's difficult to kind of, you know, go and have a meeting with them. So I always choose Zoom. There are things now like AI companions and stuff like that where you can get it to kind of Fireflies is the kind of thing that I like to use. I think it's called Fireflies. I always get it wrong. But it's the it basically can take notes of the call. I always like to record those Zoom calls as well because I can go back and read and watch them, and you can be comfortable in your office. So they're really good. And I also, like I said, I like to get the client to supply a mood board. Now that can either be like an Evernote, Pinterest, but I've had clients just send me shit on an email before. I don't care how they get it to me, but for me, it's essential that they show me some visuals that they like. It helps me gain like a sense of their visual personality. And then questionnaires, like I said, I kind of use these on and off, and I've actually got a load of questionnaires because they were really, really, really useful in the early stages of my career when I wasn't super confident, like trying to get the information out on a client call. So I've created a load of interactive PDFs in the tools section as well. But they're really, really good and really, really useful. And like I said, when we talk about elevating the experience of working with us from a client's perspective, sometimes they love being led. Sometimes they love having homework. Sometimes they love like being a part of the process. So questionnaires are a great way to get them to be a part of that process. So another thing I wanted to kind of iron out here is this kind of journey from discovery to clarity. So the discovery call is, like I said, that this big conversation, this big holistic conversation about story, like origin stories, like mission, vision, purpose kind of stuff. You know, their services, their products, really diving into their brand identity, visual verbals, and all this kind of stuff. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to take this, their audience, their positioning, and all this kind of stuff. And then when I move across into the clarity side of it, like I'm really trying to work on, like I said, story, purpose, mission, vision, audience, positioning, personality, voice pillars, examples of voice, goals and objectives. And that bottom one is so important. The most important thing out of all of this is the truth. But like the goals and objectives are the things that help us measure our success. So I'm always asking the client to clarify some goals and objectives that we're talking about at the beginning. So what are some things we want to achieve? What are some goals? What are some objectives, like I said? So well, our logo isn't very legible right now, but we want to make it more legible. That for me would be a goal. Do you know what I mean? An objective might be to do something like build a more cohesive visual identity that I can use throughout my products into the future. Do you know what I mean? A goal is something more specific than an objective. Do you know what I mean? But this is kind of like a really important stage for me, which again, like allows me to know I'm moving in the right direction, because the client has to okay this, has to okay the clarity discussion before I even start to move into the kind of visual side of working, sketching and all the rest of it. Now, feedback process. I get so many people talking to me about the feedback process that I wanted to kind of dive into this a little bit more. Like, what constitutes as a revision? Like, what does the process look like? My good friend Jandaruni, Michael Janda, has some great content on this, so be sure to go and check him out. YouTube, more Janda everywhere he is, on Instagram and stuff like that. But like, you know, what you need to do is you need to be very, very methodical with feedback process and how your work gets approved, because I'm hearing so many people who don't really like it when their clients give them feedback, which is, I understand, which is annoying when the client doesn't like your work, but there has to be some sort of feedback approval side of it, rather than just give me feedback and I'll go again, give me feedback and I'll go again. So for me, like I said, I go through this early sketch phase, get the client in, and then they choose their direction. So they've approved a concept. I then refine that idea and I get feedback from them, and then I get them to approve the next phase. So, are you happy for me to go ahead and do this, blah, blah, based on your feedback? Yes. Right, then I develop the concept, and the same thing again. You know, get some feedback, and then I'll talk to them about what the next stage is, and I'll get them to approve it before I go on to the final direction. Do you know what I mean? So then they can't go back, because they constantly approved every single section. And then you wrap it up and you finish the approved final design, and then you can take that into your, you know, because you don't want to be animating stuff, or, you know, for building out big cohesive design systems and pairing kind of hierarchy of type with stuff that you haven't had signed off from your clients. So getting, especially this is obviously within like the kind of logo world or visual identity world, like making sure that you're getting your concept feedback, and then getting that feedback approved for development as you go will make you always realize that you're moving forward. And then if at the end you're at the final direction, the client goes, I just don't like it, at least you can go, well, you've been approving this all the way, and I've been telling you and communicating what's happened, and this is how the process has worked. Look, I don't want you to be unhappy, but you're going to have to now pay me more money. Do you know what I mean? Because you've approved all this all the way along. But it's very rare that will happen, because you've got this methodical process in space. So when you kind of look at it, like when you figure out your revision process, so this would kind of be like sketch 1 revision, refine ideas 2 revisions, develop concepts 3 revisions, final directions 4 revisions. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of get this maybe like this feedback process loop going. And if there is any extra changes, they cost more. And like within your contracts, you can put some little bits and pieces, like you know, you get X amount of revisions for free as a part of the price, but then if you want any extra revisions outside of that, it might cost $200 per revision, $100 per revision, and at least the client has signed that within the contract. Okay, so this is a really important part of your process, is to have this kind of approval along the way. So whenever you're moving forward, you're moving forward rather than kind of going this way, then this way, then this way, because that nobody fucking likes that. The clients don't like that as well. So, but if you give them the freedom to do what they want, they'll take you for a ride. All right. Offboarding. So once we've gone through all of the onboarding, once we've gone through the whole creative process, and that's kind of signed off and happy, then what has to happen from there on in is final payment. So you should not be sending any files to your clients, any assets, until you have received the final payment. This is a great way to get your money quicker. I've made the mistake before of giving clients working files. This is some time ago, and then it takes me absolutely fucking ages to get payment from them, because why would they rush? They've got everything that they need. But now I say to them, company standard, once we have received the final payment, I can send the project folder with all of the assets in it, and it's amazing how quick they will pay. Also within your contracts, and you'll see within the SOW that you can now grab off the tools page, it does state that all the work that is created is owned by me until that final payment is made. So yeah, just be very, very wary of that. Never send any files until the final payment is made. Then you would create your project folder, break that down into, you know, your brand kits, your brand docs, your assets, your logos, blah, blah, blah. Make it super, super easy for your client to have access to all of the bits and pieces that you've created for them. And then you can hand over the copyright, and then always really, really good one is asking for a testimonial. You could do this in more of the Apres boarding if you want, but it's always quite nice that after the end of the project, maybe once you send over a file or an email with these bits and pieces in them, especially the project folder, you could just have, like, it'd be great if you could ask for, we could have a testimonial just to add to our case study, which we're going to put on our website. So project folders for me look something similar to this. You know, obviously we do a lot of animations and build out assets and build out much more cohesive visual identities and bits and pieces like that. But they'll have a folder of the logos. They'll have a folder of the animations all exported out into different aspect ratios. They'll have a brand book, brand kit, visual identity guidelines, depending on how big the project is how complex and how big that book is, and then also a bulk folder full of like variations of assets. If we've done a load of vector illustrations, some iconography, or whatever it is, that will all go in there. This is usually sent via Dropbox, but what I would suggest is that you always get your clients to download the link and store it on their computer, because if you're anything like me, you sometimes have a bit of a tidy up in your Dropbox, or you move folders around and you clean things up, and then suddenly your clients email you 7 months later and go, oh, that link's not working anymore. And it's because you fucking moved shit around or moved it into folders and the links are broken and they're not in the same order anymore. So always store the work, obviously, you know, because we want to have access to it. But always be sure to, when you send that link, get the client to download it, so then they're not coming back and asking you for a new link later on. It still might happen, but at least you've asked them for it. Now, handover copyright. This is something that sometimes happens and sometimes doesn't happen, but is something that I've added into the kind of contract bundle, because it is quite useful sometimes. I've had, you know, obviously, like when it states in the contract when the client has paid their final deposit, they own the copyright to all the work. So that is a somewhat binding agreement. But there are some clients who want a little bit more guts to this kind of transfer. So there's a thing called a copyright transfer document, and it basically just very simply outlines, like, your company transfers the copyright to this logo over to their company, and what you do is you would add pictures of the logo that they like in the variations, so maybe the icon and maybe the type and maybe the icon and type together, just black and white, you know, to show that they've got that's the logo that they own, and then you sign that and you seal it and you send it over to them. The things to bear in mind is that they only own the chosen directions. So if you've shown them 20 directions, you own 19 of them. They only own the one that they choose, unless they're paying you for more. They only own it once they've paid in full, and just be very, very wary. This is not a trademarking process. Trademarking process is something very different. This is purely just a transfer of creative copyright. As the designer, we own the things that we create. And what we're doing with a copyright transfer is we're transferring that ownership of copyright over to the client. If they want to go through a trademarking process or anything like that, that is up to them. They have to do that through trademark attorneys or whatever. So, Finally, Apres Board. So Apres Board are the things that happens very much after the clients have gone and they've left the door. So what I would suggest is that you have like some sort of cadence of getting back in touch with them. So 3 months after completion, 6 months after completion, 12 months after completion. Do you know what I mean? Just a little email just to reach out and say hi. You know, is there any other work you want doing? Do you have any friends that might need any work doing? You know, you can create an referral scheme, or you can upsell other services. So we've done this quite effectively in the past, where we've done visual identities for people, and then we kind of go, I mean, this was before we lent more heavily into the animation side of it, but then we go back and show them some of our animation work and talk to them about animation and say, like, we can do this for you, and then we end up doing a load of animation for them. So, like, making sure there's a cadence for you to be reaching back out to your clients. Apres, the get it? Apres Board. Apres, the client project finishing, just allows you to stay top of mind. And there might be nothing that comes out of it, but I guarantee the next time they do need something, they'll think of you before they try and find somebody else. All right. So when we talk about this referral scheme, you can create like a flex deck or like a capabilities deck. I don't know why I like to call it a flex deck, but it sounds cooler than a capabilities deck, and everybody calls it a capabilities deck. So a capabilities deck or a flex deck would be something like, it'd be like a 6 to 8 page PDF, you know, little introduction to you, a breakdown of the services that you can offer. Maybe you'll share like a couple of projects in there, and then you'll just have your contact details. And these are great things to share to your clients. These are great things to give to your clients to share to their friends. And they're great ways of, they're great things to kind of leave your clients and share with your clients. They're a great way for you to reach out and maybe do some kind of cold email, kind of outbound marketing stuff. You know, capabilities decks and flex decks are a great way, just a great like lever behind, and they're easy to attach to emails and bits and pieces like that. And you can kind of, if you were sending it to a brewery, for example, that you wanted to work with, you would make sure that your projects within that flex deck are the kind of work that that brewery would like, so you can cater and move around and position your flex deck to make sure you're positioning it in the right way to get the work that you want to get with that client. So it should always change depending on who you're sending it to, for example. So there we go, my friends. Lovely. 42 minutes. That went on for a lot longer than I expected it to do. I've also just been talking to myself for 42 minutes. That's mad, isn't it? So, here is an overview. I'm not going to go through it again, but it gives you a really good idea of, and I hope this kind of little freebie has opened your eyes, maybe made you rethink, maybe confirm that you're doing some things right, maybe confirm that you could tweak a few things. And like I said, I'm always in constant evolution of my own process, but I think seeing it in this kind of holistic overview hopefully helps you navigate a better process in the future. So it's been a pleasure chatting to you all. I don't think there's any more slides. So thanks so much. I hope this helps. I'm going to continue to keep dropping stuff like this because I find it helpful. And I wish I had stuff like this when I was growing up as a slightly chubbier, less bearded designer. So I hope it helps. I love you all. You're great. Have a lovely day and chat soon.